I stood outside St. Michael's Church as mourners filed past, offering condolences I barely heard. My brother Tom was gone, a heart attack at 47, sudden and brutal. The casket had been lowered into the ground an hour ago, and I still couldn't process it. People dispersed slowly, heading to their cars. I lingered near the cemetery gate, alone with my grief. Then my phone buzzed. I pulled it from my pocket, expecting a sympathy text from a relative. Instead, my blood froze. The message was from Tom's number. "I know what you did. The truth will come out soon." My hands shook. Tom had been dead for 5 days. His phone was in police evidence, standard procedure for sudden deaths. How was this possible? I stared at the screen, reading the words again and again. Someone was playing a sick joke. But who? And why? My world tilted, confusion and fear washing over me. I looked around the cemetery, half expecting to see someone watching. There was no one. Just gravestones and silence. The wake was held at Tom's house, a sprawling colonial his wife Vanessa had insisted on buying 3 years ago. Vanessa moved through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting condolences, playing the grieving widow perfectly. She'd always been controlling, but today she was all business, discussing estate matters, managing logistics, ensuring everything ran smoothly. I watched her from across the room, feeling invisible. She'd barely acknowledged my presence since I arrived. When our eyes met briefly, she looked through me as if I didn't exist. My nephew Kyle approached, offering a weak handshake. "Uncle Frank, thanks for coming." His tone was formal, distant. Tom and I had grown apart over the years, thanks largely to Vanessa's influence. She'd made it clear I wasn't the right kind of family, not successful enough, not ambitious enough. Now, standing in my dead brother's house, I felt that exclusion more sharply than ever. But my thoughts kept returning to that message. Who sent it? What did it mean? After most guests left, Vanessa gathered the immediate family in Tom's study. She sat behind his mahogany desk like a CEO addressing shareholders. Tom's lawyer, Gerald Pierce, stood beside her with a folder. "We'll handle the will reading now," Vanessa announced, not asking if anyone objected. Gerald cleared his throat and began reading. The house, Tom's business shares, the investment accounts, everything went to Vanessa. Tom's children, Kyle and Sophia, received trust funds. My name wasn't mentioned once. I'd expected it, but hearing it confirmed still stung. When Gerald finished, Vanessa looked directly at me for the first time all day. "Tom never really saw you as the family type, Frank." Shame. Her words were calculated, designed to humiliate. My face burned as everyone shifted uncomfortably. Kyle looked away. Sophia stared at her hands. Vanessa's smile was thin and cold. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, but what could I say? Tom and I had drifted apart. Maybe he really hadn't cared. But that message on my phone whispered otherwise. Something wasn't right. That night, I couldn't sleep. The message haunted me. At 2 a.m., I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, searching for answers. Tom had been meticulous about finances. I knew he kept digital records. Years ago, before Vanessa isolated him, Tom had given me access to a shared cloud account for family photos. I tried logging in, expecting it to be deleted. Surprisingly, it still worked. Inside, I found folders I'd never noticed before, labeled with dates and cryptic codes. I opened one from 6 months ago. Spreadsheets appeared, showing transfers from Tom's business account to a personal account I didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands, moving regularly. I cross-referenced the account number with public records databases. It belonged to Vanessa. My stomach tightened. Why was Tom transferring massive amounts to her separate account? I kept digging, finding more transfers, each larger than the last. Then I found a handwritten note scanned into the files. "Can't trust her anymore. Need to protect Frank." Tom's handwriting. My breath caught. What had my brother discovered? The next morning, I drove to Vanessa's house unannounced. She answered the door in designer athleisure, her expression annoyed. Frank. What do you want? I held up my phone, showing the spreadsheets I'd printed to photos. I found Tom's financial records. Care to explain why he was transferring hundreds of thousands to your private account? Vanessa's eyes flickered, surprise, then calculation. She laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Tom managed his money however he wanted. If he didn't trust you enough to explain, that's not my problem. She started to close the door, but I blocked it with my foot. He wrote that he couldn't trust you. What were you doing, Vanessa? Her smile vanished, replaced by cold fury. Get off my property, Frank. If Tom didn't trust you with his business, that's on him. Not my fault. She slammed the door in my face. I stood there, anger boiling. She was hiding something big. And she was confident I couldn't touch her. That confidence would be her mistake. 2 days later, a man named Spencer Knox called me. Mr. Carlyle? My name is Spencer. I was Tom's business partner until 2 years ago. His voice was nervous, barely above a whisper. I heard you've been asking questions about Vanessa. We need to talk. We met at a diner on the outskirts of town, far from anyone who might recognize us. Spencer was thin, mid-50s, with worried eyes that darted constantly toward the door. Vanessa pushed me out of the company, he said once we sat. She convinced Tom I was embezzling. It was a lie, but she had forged documents to back it up. Tom believed her. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. Why are you telling me this? Spencer leaned closer. Because Vanessa didn't just destroy my reputation. She's been stealing from Tom's company for years. Millions, Frank. And when Tom started to figure it out, I think. He trailed off, fear evident on his face. You think she had something to do with his death? Spencer swallowed hard. I don't have proof. But Tom called me a week before he died. Said he'd found something. He sounded scared. After meeting Spencer, I went through Tom's phone records more carefully. I'd gotten copies from the cloud account. Tom had backed up everything automatically. There, buried among work calls and family messages, I found a draft text he'd never sent. It was addressed to me. Frank, you were right about Vanessa. I should have listened years ago. She's been lying to me, stealing from the company, manipulating everything. I'm gathering evidence, but I need to be careful. If something happens to me, look into the offshore accounts. I've hidden the access codes where only you would think to look. Remember Dad's cabin? I'm sorry for pushing you away. I was trying to protect you, but I see now I just hurt us both. I trust you to do what's right. Tom, tears blurred my vision. My brother had tried to reach out, even knowing the danger he was in. The cabin, our father's old hunting cabin upstate, where Tom and I had spent summers as kids. If Tom hid something there, I'd find it. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about honoring my brother's last wish. Before I could plan a trip to the cabin, Vanessa made her move. I came home from work to find her waiting on my porch, arms crossed. We need to talk, Frank. Her tone was pleasant, but her eyes were ice. I unlocked the door and let her in, wary. She sat on my couch without being invited, looking around my modest living room with barely concealed disdain. I know you've been poking around Tom's finances, she said. I'm going to give you some advice. Stop. I remained standing, refusing to be intimidated in my own home. Or what? Vanessa's smile was sharp. Or I'll make sure everyone knows about your gambling problem. My blood went cold. Years ago, I'd struggled with gambling, racked up debt, nearly lost everything. I'd been clean for a decade, but Vanessa clearly knew. I'll tell the family you were pressuring Tom for money. That you're desperate and willing to lie, fabricate evidence, anything to get your hands on his estate. Who do you think they'll believe? The grieving widow or the deadbeat brother? She stood, smoothing her dress. Stay out of my way, Frank. This is your only warning. 2 nights later, I came home to find my front door ajar. My stomach dropped. I pushed it open cautiously, flipping on lights. The place had been ransacked, drawers pulled out, papers scattered, cushions slashed. My laptop was gone. So was the folder where I'd kept printed copies of Tom's financial records. On my kitchen table sat a note, written in block letters, "You should have stayed away." Rage and fear warred inside me. Vanessa was escalating. She'd sent someone to rob me, to intimidate me, to erase evidence. I called the police, filed a report, but I knew nothing would come of it. There were no cameras, no witnesses. The officer who took my statement looked at me with pity. "Probably kids, sir. Sorry about your stuff." After he left, I sat in the wreckage of my home and made a decision. Vanessa wanted a fight? She'd get one. But I wouldn't play by her rules anymore. I'd play to win. The next blow came from an unexpected direction. My son Ryan called, his voice tight with anger. "Dad, I need to ask you something. Is it true you've been trying to steal from Uncle Tom's estate?" I was stunned. "What? Who told you that?" Ryan's voice cracked. "Vanessa showed me bank statements. She said you've been forging documents, lying to the family, trying to get money. She said Uncle Tom cut you out of the will because you couldn't be trusted." My heart sank. Vanessa was poisoning my own son against me. "Ryan, none of that is true. Vanessa is lying. She's the one who's been stealing." "She said you'd say that," Ryan interrupted. "She warned me you'd try to manipulate me. I don't know what to believe anymore, Dad. I need space." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, feeling the walls close in. Vanessa had turned my family against me, stolen evidence, and threatened me. I was alone. But then I remembered Spencer's words, and Tom's hidden message. I wasn't alone. Tom had left me a path to the truth. Time to follow it. I drove 4 hours north to our father's cabin. It sat on 20 acres of woods, abandoned for years. The key was still hidden under the same loose floorboard on the porch where Tom and I had left it decades ago. Inside, the cabin smelled of dust and old wood. I searched methodically, closets, drawers, under furniture. In the bedroom Tom and I had shared as kids, I noticed something, the loose floorboard where we'd hidden comic books. I pried it up. Inside was a waterproof box. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were USB drives, bank statements, and a letter addressed to me. "Frank," Tom had written, "if you're reading this, I'm gone. I've gathered evidence of Vanessa's embezzlement, offshore accounts, forged documents, everything. She's stolen over $2 million from my business. I also discovered she took out a life insurance policy on me last year. $5 million. I'm going to confront her, but I wanted you to have this in case something happens. You're the only one I trust. I'm sorry for everything. Please protect my kids." Tom, tears streamed down my face. Tom had known. And he'd tried to protect me, even in death. I took the evidence to a lawyer, not Gerald Pierce, who was clearly in Vanessa's pocket, but a family attorney named Olivia Brenner who specialized in estate fraud. She reviewed everything with meticulous care. "This is solid, Frank," she said finally. "Vanessa embezzled systematically over 4 years. The offshore accounts are traceable. And the life insurance policy taken out 6 months before Tom's death? That's suspicious timing." I leaned forward. "Can we prove she killed him?" Olivia hesitated. "That's a criminal matter, beyond my scope. But I can file a civil suit for fraud and embezzlement. If we win, we can freeze her assets and force a full investigation into Tom's death. The police might take a second look with this evidence." Hope flickered. "How long will it take?" "Months, possibly a year. But Frank, you need to be prepared. Vanessa will fight dirty. She'll attack your credibility, your past, everything. Are you ready for that? I thought of Tom's letter, of Ryan's hurt voice, of years of being dismissed and belittled. I'm ready, I said. Let's take her down. Olivia filed the lawsuit. Within days, Vanessa's response came, not through legal channels, but through the family. Kyle called me, his voice cold. Uncle Frank, Vanessa says you're trying to destroy Mom's reputation to get money. She says you're lying about Dad, making up stories. Is that true? I closed my eyes, exhausted. Kyle, your mother stole from your father. She embezzled millions. I have proof. She says the proof is fake. She says you're desperate. I wanted to scream, to force him to see the truth. But Vanessa had gotten to him first. Kyle, I loved your father. I would never dishonor his memory. Please, just look at the evidence yourself before you make up your mind. Silence. Then, I'll think about it. He hung up. Vanessa was rallying the family against me, painting me as the villain. My reputation was crumbling. But I'd come too far to quit now. Justice for Tom mattered more than what anyone thought of me. As the case progressed, Olivia uncovered something even more damning. Vanessa's financial dealings weren't just embezzlement, they were tied to a larger operation. She'd been laundering money through Tom's business for a criminal organization led by a man named Marcus Hale. This goes way beyond fraud, Olivia explained. If we expose this, federal authorities will get involved. Vanessa could face decades in prison. I stared at the documents spread across her desk. How deep does this go? Deep enough that Vanessa probably killed Tom to keep him quiet. He'd figured out the laundering scheme and was going to blow the whistle. My hands shook with rage. We have to bring her down. Olivia nodded grimly. I'm forwarding this to the FBI. But Frank, you need protection. These people are dangerous. I thought about it, then shook my head. I'm not hiding. Vanessa's going to pay for what she did. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I confronted Vanessa one final time. I showed up at her house with Olivia and a federal agent named Theo Castillo. Vanessa opened the door, her confident smile faltering when she saw Agent Castillo's badge. Vanessa Morrison, Castillo said, we need to ask you some questions about financial irregularities in your late husband's business. Vanessa's eyes darted to me, then back to Castillo. I don't know what Frank has told you, but he's a liar. A desperate, jealous man trying to ruin me. I stepped forward, calm and determined. We have bank statements. Offshore accounts. Communications with Marcus Hale. We know everything. For the first time, I saw real fear in Vanessa's eyes. She tried to shut the door, but Castillo blocked it. Ma'am, we can do this here or at the federal building. Your choice. Vanessa's composure shattered. You can't prove anything, she screamed. Tom was weak. He would have ruined everything. I walked away as Castillo read Vanessa her rights. I'd heard enough. Justice was finally coming. The investigation moved quickly. Within weeks, federal agents raided Vanessa's home and Tom's business offices. They seized computers, files, everything. Olivia called me with updates almost daily. They've traced over $3 million to Vanessa's offshore accounts, she said. And they found evidence she'd been in contact with Marcus Hale for years. The feds are building a RICO case. I felt a grim satisfaction. What about Tom's death? The medical examiner is reopening the case. There were irregularities in the autopsy they initially overlooked, traces of a compound that can induce heart attacks. Combined with the insurance policy and Vanessa's motive, they're treating it as a homicide investigation. I leaned back in my chair, overwhelmed. Tom had been murdered. And we were about to prove it. How long until trial? I asked. Olivia hesitated. Federal cases take time. But the evidence is overwhelming. Vanessa's not getting out of this, Frank. She's done. Vanessa's world began to unravel publicly. News outlets picked up the story. Local businesswoman charged in embezzlement and murder-for-hire scheme. Her assets were frozen. The business Tom had built was placed in receivership. Friends and associates distanced themselves. I watched from the sidelines as her carefully constructed life collapsed. One evening, Kyle called. His voice was thick with emotion. "Uncle Frank, I'm sorry. I read the evidence. I should have believed you." Relief washed over me. "It's not your fault, Kyle. Vanessa manipulated all of us. She killed Dad," he said, voice breaking. "I can't believe it. All this time, she was lying." I didn't have words to comfort him. Some betrayals were too deep for words. "We'll get through this," I said finally. "Your dad wanted his kids protected. I'm going to make sure that happens." Kyle was silent for a moment. "Thank you for not giving up." After we hung up, I felt a weight lift. My family was beginning to heal. The trial began 6 months after Vanessa's arrest. The federal prosecutor, a sharp woman named Claudia Park, presented the evidence methodically: financial records, communications with Marcus Hale, the reopened autopsy showing traces of a lethal compound. Vanessa's defense attorney tried to paint her as a victim of Tom's poor business decisions, but the evidence was overwhelming. The offshore accounts, the insurance policy, her communications with known criminals, it all pointed to calculated, deliberate crimes. I testified, recounting my investigation, the threats Vanessa had made, the evidence Tom had hidden. Vanessa stared at me from the defense table, her expression hateful. When Spencer Knox testified about being pushed out of the company, the jury leaned forward, engaged. When the medical examiner explained how Tom's heart attack could have been induced, several jurors looked physically ill. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts: embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy, and first-degree murder. Vanessa showed no emotion as the judge sentenced her to life in prison without parole. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. I gave a brief statement: "Justice has been served for my brother Tom. His children can now begin to heal, knowing the truth." Kyle and Sophia stood beside me, their faces drawn but relieved. That evening, we gathered at my house: Kyle, Sophia, Ryan, and me. It was the first time in years we'd sat together as family. "I'm sorry I doubted you, Dad," Ryan said quietly. I squeezed his shoulder. "You were lied to. It's not your fault." Sophia spoke up, her voice trembling. "Uncle Frank, thank you. For fighting for Dad. For not giving up on us." I looked at Tom's kids, seeing his features in their faces. "Your father was a good man. He made mistakes, but he loved you both more than anything. I just did what he would have wanted." We sat in comfortable silence, grief and relief mingling. The nightmare was over. Vanessa's shadow no longer loomed over us. We could finally move forward. In the months following the trial, life slowly normalized. Vanessa's assets were liquidated, and after legal fees and restitution, a significant portion went into trust funds for Kyle and Sophia. Tom's business was restructured and placed under new management. I helped where I could, honoring Tom's legacy. One afternoon, Olivia called with unexpected news. "Frank, we found something in Tom's estate planning documents. He'd set up a charitable foundation years ago, before Vanessa took control. It's been dormant, but it's still legally active. And Frank, he named you as the primary trustee." I was stunned. Why didn't anyone know about this? Vanessa probably buried it, hoping no one would find it. But it's legitimate. Tom wanted you to manage a foundation dedicated to helping families affected by financial fraud and domestic abuse. There's initial funding of $500,000. Tears stung my eyes. Even in death, Tom had trusted me, had given me a way to honor his memory. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll make sure it helps people." I threw myself into building the foundation Tom had envisioned. We called it the Thomas Carlyle Foundation for Family Justice. With Spencer's help, he'd been exonerated and was eager to contribute. We set up programs to help fraud victims, fund legal aid, and support families torn apart by financial crimes. Ryan joined as a volunteer, wanting to help his uncle's legacy. Working together healed the rift between us. Kyle and Sophia contributed funds from their inheritance, determined to turn their father's tragedy into something positive. The foundation grew quickly. Within a year, we'd helped dozens of families, provided legal assistance, and raised awareness about financial abuse. Local news covered our work, and donations poured in. Standing at our first annual fundraiser, surrounded by people whose lives we'd touched, I felt Tom's presence. This was what he'd wanted, not revenge, but healing. Not bitterness, but hope. I'd honored his trust, and in doing so, I'd found my own purpose. Vanessa disappeared from public consciousness, serving her sentence in a federal prison far from our town. I never visited, never spoke to her again. Some people urged me to forgive, but I couldn't. What she'd done to Tom, to his children, to our family, it was unforgivable. But I didn't let hatred consume me either. I focused on the foundation, on rebuilding family relationships, on creating something positive from the ashes of tragedy. True justice, I learned, wasn't about revenge. It was about doing what was right, protecting the vulnerable, and honoring those we'd lost. Vanessa's fall from grace was complete. She'd lost everything, her freedom, her wealth, her reputation. That was consequence, not revenge. I took quiet satisfaction in knowing I'd pursued justice the right way, through truth and law, not through cruelty or vindictiveness. Tom would have been proud of that choice. 2 years after Tom's death, I received a letter from the Foundation's legal team. Tom had included one final provision in his estate documents, a letter to be delivered to me on the 2nd anniversary of his passing. I opened it with trembling hands. "Frank," Tom had written, "if you're reading this, you did what I knew you would, you fought for the truth. I'm sorry I let Vanessa drive us apart. I was weak, and I let her manipulate me into pushing you away. But I always knew, deep down, that you were the one person I could truly trust. The foundation is my way of making amends. Use it to help others, to prevent what happened to our family from destroying others. You're a better man than I ever was, Frank. Thank you for being the brother I needed, even when I didn't deserve it. I love you." Tom, I sat in my office, tears streaming down my face, and felt the final piece of my grief settle. Tom and I had reconciled, even across death. His trust had given me purpose, his faith had given me strength. I would carry that forward for the rest of my life. The foundation continued to thrive. We expanded to 3 states, helping hundreds of families navigate financial fraud, legal battles, and recovery. Ryan took on a leadership role, his passion for justice mirroring my own. Kyle and Sophia remained involved, funding scholarships in their father's name. One evening, at a foundation event, a woman approached me. "Mr. Carlyle, I wanted to thank you. Your foundation helped my family when we had nowhere to turn. My husband embezzled and disappeared, leaving us with nothing. You gave us legal help and financial counseling. We're rebuilding now." Her words filled me with profound gratitude. This was Tom's legacy, not the business Vanessa had corrupted, but this foundation that helped people in their darkest moments. After the event, I drove to the cemetery where Tom was buried. I stood at his grave, hands in my pockets. "We did it, brother," I said quietly. "We made something good out of the pain. I hope you're proud." The wind rustled through the trees, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Years passed. The foundation grew into a nationally recognized organization. Ryan married and had children, Tom's grandnieces and grandnephews who would never meet him but would know his story. Kyle took over Tom's restructured business, running it with integrity his father would have admired. Sophia became a lawyer specializing in estate fraud, directly inspired by our battle. I retired from my day job and devoted myself fully to the foundation. On what would have been Tom's 55th birthday, we held a memorial fundraiser. The ballroom was packed with supporters, families we'd helped, volunteers, and donors. I stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. My brother Tom was a good man who made mistakes. He trusted the wrong person and paid the ultimate price. But his final act was one of faith, faith in family, faith in justice, faith that good could triumph over evil. This foundation exists because Tom believed in second chances and redemption. Tonight, we honor him by continuing that work. The applause was deafening. Afterward, Ryan found me, his arm around his wife. Grandpa would be proud, wouldn't he? I smiled, thinking of Tom's letter, of his trust, of the journey we'd taken. Yes, I said. He would be. I'd turned grief into purpose, betrayal into justice, and loss into legacy. Tom's message from beyond the grave had led me here, to a life of meaning, surrounded by family, doing work that mattered. And that was the truest victory of all.